Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming this afternoon. We think we have a really good program for you, and I just want to begin with a few preliminary framing remarks. My name's Al DeCiccio. I'm the Vice President of Academic Affairs, and on behalf of Laboure College, I want to announce that we abhor the terrorist attack and the resulting 9 murders on the Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Charleston. We believe that racism is intolerable. We believe that there can be no excellence without diversity. So today we have a memorial service that we're going to start the afternoon with, and then we have a panel presentation where some panelists will have some brief framing remarks, and we want to elicit from all of you your ideas for a formal program to address the issues that I just talked about, issues of diversity, racism, and intolerance towards racism on behalf of Laboure College. So thank you for coming, and now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Leo Thibault, who will lead us through the memorial service.
Good afternoon and welcome. To bring us to our conversation, perhaps we could just quietly take a moment on the program and read this little quote from one of the Sisters of St. Joseph. It points to why we're here this afternoon. And after you've done that, just to quietly read through the lyrics of an anthem we're going to hear that'll bring a close to this portion of our reflection just prior to our conversation. So just quietly for a minute or so, consider what these words have to say for us as a community, and what the lyrics through this wonderful author, in terms of his experience and appreciation of his own community and the history that it reveals. So at this moment in time, we lift up in prayer
Sharonda Coleman Singleton, Cynthia Hurd, Susie Jackson, Ethel Lance, Reverend DePayne Middleton, Reverend Clementa Pinkney, Tywanza Sanders, Reverend Dr. Daniel Simmons Sr., Myra Thompson,
scripture reading comes from the book of Revelations. A new heaven and a new earth. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth for the first time, and the first time earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and God will dwell with them. They shall be God's people, and God will be with them and be their God. Every tear will be wiped away from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning, crying, or pain, for the former world has passed away." This is the word of God. May we add a blessing to his word.
John Dyan and Titania Grant, Kathy Richmond, and Karen Masters, and Pat Riddick come forward. There are others who have agreed to be part of these discussions but are not here today. They're traveling or with loved ones, but they'll be part of formal discussions later on. I just want to say, as they get settled, I was rereading an interesting article by a colleague of mine in the field that I'm in, which is rhetoric and composition. His name is Victor Villanueva, and he's written a really good book called Bootstraps from an American of Color. And he has talked about what's called the new racism. And what he does is he imports ideas from a very famous thinker of the 20th century called Kenneth Burke. And he talks about how what we've done is we've used master tropes like metaphor and irony to displace the way in which we think about race, thinking that we've solved that problem. But all we've done is we've put it somewhere else. So we called it ethnicity or identity or culture or identities. And then it becomes ironic because we say things like, we're colorblind. When that's really kind of an essential irony of our times. So you should think about that as you think about the framing remarks that my colleagues will make, and then hopefully you'll have a lot more to offer us in terms of a formal program that we can put together this academic year.
I feel weird talking. I think when we try to approach, both this specific tragedy, but also broader questions about race and inequality in the United States, the most important thing as kind of a starting point is to remember that we really have to think historically. I think where we tend to go wrong is to sort of think about incidents as sort of outside of history, or the work of individual people.
Sorry, if you could use the mic, you can't hear. Is it on?
I hold it a little closer. Outside of history. All right. So we have to think historically because white supremacy really has shaped and has continued to shape Western history in general and American history specifically. And because of that, it actually, it's informed and distorts pretty much all of the institutions in the West, in the United States. And also, it damages all of us as individuals. It distorts our relationships to each other. And it has really profound consequences. And I think a lot of them are uncomfortable. And we want to kind of put them aside and not deal with them. And it's those very uncomfortable consequences that are the things that are most important to talk about. And I think, and I say this, as a white man, and thus, a particularly privileged person in the United States, that it's also a particularly important conversation for white people to have about privilege that most white people don't want to have. And so I just want to kind of lay out some ideas that I think might help shape this kind of conversation, and specifically to kind of address ideological tendencies that are problematic and invasive, so that we can kind of lay them out and kind of be able to recognize them. So the first is that because we have this kind of history and this power structure, that when we talk about race, we're really talking about power. And that means that who you are matters as much as what you say when you're talking about these issues. It means something different for me to say something than for Pat to say something, even if we're saying the same exact thing. And that's part of the way privilege works. The other thing is that I think the civil rights movement historically has done a very good job of convincing everybody that racism is wrong. So that, the Charleston terrorists aside, most people are not sort of operating from a position that they think racism is okay and they want to justify it. And that's actually a profoundly huge achievement. If you came of age before the civil rights movement, or you know anything about the political arguments the way people talked before that, just getting people to recognize racism is wrong is actually an important starting point too. But one of the consequences of it is it's made any kind of discussion where you're trying to point out the way something somebody says is inscribed or informed by this kind of history. It makes people tend to respond defensively because it makes it seem like you're accusing them of racism, consciously being racist. But really what you're trying to do is address the legacies of this history and how it shapes and informs our actions, even though we don't really understand necessarily immediately how it's doing that. So let me give you some examples of how this works. There are a couple of popular memes floating around social media. I'm sure you're all familiar with the Black Lives Matter. One common response that I've seen is people respond to say, all lives matter. And that's obviously true, but that's not the problem. Right? Everybody knows that all lives matter. The problem is that we have a system that has systematically devalued Black lives. And it's created a kind of very different experience for people based on who they are. So when we say all lives matter, it sounds good, if you're coming up in a kind of enlightenment tradition where everyone is an individual. But it actually evades the whole point, which is that while all lives matter, Black lives has been specifically devalued, and that's something we have to kind of deal with. So you can't be colorblind. Right? That's the sort of Alan's alluding to, which is the other thing. You can't respond to this by saying, I don't see color, or I'm colorblind, or I judge the individual, because that also sidesteps the problem. We often don't know, or don't think about the kind of ways in which the history of white supremacy has inscribed our actions. And, if we sort of don't see color, we ignore that, and then we just perpetuate the system that exists. The rhetoric of personal responsibility. That's another way in which people evade this problem. If it just becomes the problem of the Charleston terrorist, he's crazy, right? He's mentally unstable. Those are evasions because it ignores how we as a society created space for this kind of action, this neo-Confederate ideology, white supremacist ideology more generally. It ignores the way in which, just in the past year alone, there have been so many instances of oppression, violent physical oppression of people of color by police, by structural oppression in America. And it ignores the fact that the primary source of terrorism historically in the United States has been by white supremacists, from the KKK during Reconstruction all the way through. And you'll notice that there's reluctance in the government, in the FBI, and among politicians to actually call this terrorism. That in and of itself is an indicator of this kind of double standard created by this idea that you can somehow just talk about this as individuals. We're not individuals in this sense. We're historical actors. And whatever our intentions are in our actions, we have to always work hard on our own and together to kind of put our actions into this kind of context. Because it's not something that we'll just do on our own. It's an actual intellectual effort that we have to engage in. And then the final part of this is that we have to really acknowledge the existence of privilege. If we don't acknowledge that, if we don't acknowledge that our society has systematically rewarded some people at the expense of others, first off, what that means is that you're sort of invalidating the experiences of other people. So when you hear someone like Bill O'Reilly say, white privilege doesn't exist, what he's really doing is he, as a millionaire white man, is telling people of color what they should be thinking, how they should be living, what they should be doing. That is the most problematic kind of racism that we have today. It's not conscious. It's just an inability to see our own history for what it is and how it's sort of shaped and formed the way different groups of people think and act and behave. If we can't come to terms with that, we can't identify the patterns of discrimination, we can't respond to them in any kind of effective way. And that, I think, is what we have to do. So I think it's really important to avoid this kind of ideological stumbling blocks. The idea that we can be colorblind, the idea that this is all a question of personal responsibility or individualism, and the idea that we have to acknowledge that privilege exists. That has to be always part of our conversation.
Thank you. first thing I'd like to say is that if any of us have been uncomfortable during a conversation that had to do with the Charlestown tragedy, we should be. It's only when we are uncomfortable that we step out of our comfort zone and do something meaningful. I think among some of the most profound things that Martin Luther King said was, he said that one of the greatest rights in America is our right to speak out against injustice and make a difference. So we have that ability to do that. My concern in looking at how we look at developing a response to this tragedy is to first think long and hard about the lives, and that the lives would not have been taken in vain. To me, that's the most important thing. And for that to happen, I think we do have to come together. Whatever voice or whatever message that we put out has to come from a diverse community. And I know sometimes we get so tired of hearing that word. But it truly means all of us, each of us, every one of us, every color, every ethnicity, everyone who has a voice, who has an ability to think about it coming together. Some time ago, before coming to Laboure, I worked in community organizing, and it's hard. Community organizing is one of the hardest jobs you'll ever do. Because the important thing for me, a goal as an organizer, was to make sure that the people who I brought together were colorblind and were diverse. We were able to get eminent domain in a certain part of Roxbury many years ago, probably some of you were not even born when this happened. But we were able to get eminent domain because the group that came together to speak to the powers that be looked like you. They were all colors. They were all powers. They came from every walk of life in this wonderful country. And because it was diverse, the powers to be had to look at that particular group of people and listen to them, because it wasn't a polarization. I hope and pray that that does not happen as a result of Charlestown and all the other horrors that are occurring racially in this country, that we polarize and we stand on either side. Nothing would be worse for us to do. Though we want to go to our corners and say, I'm here, my people are here, you're there, your people are there. We will gain nothing unless we come together as a united front. So in thinking of a message, I would just ask that you think that we don't divide each other based on what has happened, but we come together with a force that's larger and stronger than any had ever seen. And I think at Laboure we can do that. That would be the best that I would give in terms of what we can do to address the racial divide in America.
My own initial reaction, as I'm sure is true of probably everybody in this room, to the massacre at the Bible study, the Emmanuel AME Church, was horror and profound grief. The assassin prayed for almost an hour with his victims before he slaughtered them. To quote the songwriter Paul Stuckey's paraphrase of Matthew's Gospel, quote, "Whenever two or more of you are gathered in his name, there is love," unquote. There was no love in that gunman's heart. There's a well-known teaching in Jewish scriptures. Whoever destroys a soul, it is considered as if he destroyed an entire world. And whoever saves a life, it is considered as if he saved an entire world. The Quran, the holy book of Islam, contains an equally well-known and almost identical teaching. 9 entire worlds were destroyed on that terrible day. Still, love did not die that day in Charleston. It lives on in the forgiveness of the survivors and of the victims' families and friends. A reporter asked whether forgiveness is a value of the African American church or whether it's a Christian value. I'd answer that it's a Christian virtue, yet one lived out most generously in suffering church communities. Today we stand in prayer and solidarity with the suffering church in Charleston. Church should be a place of safety and refuge, a place free from the sin and scandal of hateful racism. As St. Paul reminds us, we are all one in Christ Jesus. May the horror of the desecration of Mother Emanuel Church lead us to appreciate the healing power of prayer in common and of joining together in service, as the Laboure community has done over the past year in our school masses and reflections, in last spring's inaugural day of service, in all the unacknowledged acts of service and kindness that you, our students, do for one another and for your patients. We are a diverse college community. We have roots in many nations. Among us are Catholics and other Christians, as well as Jews, Muslims, and members of Eastern religions. Among us, too, are those who profess no religion, but who seek God with a sincere heart. We value and are enriched by our diversity. In joining together to honor God in our own ways, lighting up the pathways of this earth with faith and love, we become a beacon of light and love to the city, the nation, and yes, the world beyond our small campus. Christian ethics are founded upon the bedrock principle of the sacredness and dignity of the human person, each and every one of us made in the image and likeness of God. Each and every one of us is precious in God's sight. As we set aside categorizations and stereotypes, making the effort to get to know a classmate or a colleague as an individual with a unique set of hopes, dreams, strengths, challenges, we each begin to see and to value the sister or brother who stands before our eyes. Yet, to gaze at another face to face isn't enough. Love, as Antoine de Saint-Exupéry famously wrote, does not consist in gazing at each other, but in looking outward together in the same direction. We in the Laboure community must thus look outward together toward the telos of God's kingdom on earth, a just and peaceful world in which the dignity of each person is honored. In a just world, each person has an equal opportunity to receive a good education. Education lifts people out of poverty. It can prepare us for good-paying jobs, for careers that are meaningful and of service to others. Still, a good education accomplishes even more. A good education opens our minds and hearts. It instills lifelong curiosity and a hunger to understand other people, their viewpoints, what they believe, the values they hold dear. And a good education helps each of us to know ourselves and to recognize our own vocation, the path of service to which God has called us by name. As nurses and healthcare professionals, you are called to care for your patients, to heal the whole person, with respect and without discrimination. When your knowledge and skill saves a patient's life, you'll save an entire world. That's a huge privilege and an awesome responsibility. There's a Hebrew phrase in Judaism, tikkun olam. It means repair of the world. We who are Christians call the repaired world the kingdom of God on earth. We repair the world, we spread the kingdom by gathering together to follow Christ's teachings and spread God's love. The telos, the goal of our work and study at Laboure, can be nothing short of spreading God's kingdom on earth by being healers of bodies, of souls, and of communities, repairing and bringing the light of love to a too often unjust and sinful world.
everyone. My name is Tatiana Grant, and I'm actually a library student. She'll be graduating next semester, hopefully. Thanks. It's pretty interesting. When I was asked to be on this panel to discuss what happened in Charlestown, I remember I wrote an email back and I said, you know, what happened in Charlestown, like many others, it brought tears to my eyes. But this year, along with many other years, have been very difficult. When you hear about situations such as Trayvon Martin, Eric Garner, Michael Brown, and many, many, many more, unfortunately. And being a black woman, and actually having 3 black brothers, and seeing situations where I know are being judged by race, are being judged by the way they appear, are being judged by what they wear, is extremely disheartening. And when I see these situations on the news, in media, on Facebook, on Instagram, and I see what people are writing about it, I start to wonder. If people actually understand what's going on. You think about these situations aren't just happening out of anywhere. They're just not popping out of the blue. There's a history, just like John mentioned earlier. There's definitely a deep, deep history that starts off with slavery. I know when I bring up slavery, many people say, whoa, she brings up slavery, that happened 1,000 years ago, what is she talking about? This is 2015. That's not true. Slavery was not that long ago. You think about the 13th Amendment, that was passed in 1865. And even after the 13th Amendment was passed, slavery continued in some type of sense. This attitude of racism and treating black people as if they're not even human is not something new. But now it becomes something that's in our face. Now it does become something which makes all of us uncomfortable. Makes us wonder, wait, when I'm speaking to a white individual, are they judging me? Or if a white person is thinking, like, wait, if I'm speaking to a black individual, are they judging me? Are they viewing me as a racist? So it's very interesting that these very sad situations are coming up, but it's bringing up a very necessary, a very urgent conversation, which is about race. How do we feel about each other? When we look at each other, are we questioning automatically our character, our morals, how we were raised? It's interesting. I'm a nurse and I'm working, and it's so interesting. I work right in Roxbury, which is pretty much a black Hispanic neighborhood. And in these situations, when the hashtag came about of Black Lives Matter, I had many of my coworkers who are white. They said, what are they talking about? Black lives matter, all lives matter. Isn't that racist in itself? Doesn't that show who's on the wrong? And as John explained, I had to explain, like, we know all lives matter. There's no question about that. We would never say one life matter over another. But for some reason in society, in our history, in America, we almost have been told that black lives don't matter. That blacks could be treated less. And we may not have been told that exactly, but in some sense, in some form, that's the message that we have been receiving. All of us. And in some ways, some of us accept it, and some may not. I think, well, while I had this conversation, I've been definitely very adamant on having this conversation with all people. I think when we speak about what's going on, and we look in the media, and we hear that, people shouldn't be saying Black Lives Matter. Black people have been killing black people for years. Who cares if a cop kills another black man? When we hear things of that nature, I think what we really, truly need to do is take a step back and be empathetic. Recognize that that's a life in the street. That's someone's son. That's someone's father. That's someone's brother, uncle, friend. That could have been anyone. They had a future. They have loved ones. I think sometimes we need to take a step out of ourselves. And instead of being so quick to judge and feel like we have to defend something, just take a step back and say, wow, what caused that? What led to that situation? Was it the color of their skin? Was it the saggy jeans? The sneakers? Was it their background? Was it worth his life? And I truly, truly believe once we start to be empathetic, we start to ask ourselves those questions, that's when everything will start to kind of come together. We will start to realize, wait, there is something wrong here. These messages that have been sent for centuries, they need to change. And I definitely don't expect this to happen overnight or next year or so on. But I do think with planning and organizing just like this, it can stop. Even though I hear many people say in Boston, we don't live in the South. Those aren't our issues. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. We have very similar issues. And once we all of us, whites, blacks, male, female, young, the lovely older folks, once we all start to recognize that we all can take accountability in some sense, and we can all make some type of change, some type of positive change, that's when we'll start to see this piece together. And thank you very much for inviting me to be on this panel. And it's so lovely to see you guys here. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Tatiana. First, I would like to thank Leo and the people who pulled the service together. That was a very lovely way to memorialize a horrible act. When I agreed to be on this panel, my thought was that I would learn something from my colleagues, and now that I'm sitting at the end of the table, I certainly have learned some things. And I wanted to make sure that I had an opportunity to listen to the people on the panel, as well as to any of the comments that come from the audience. Because as Tatiana just so graciously said, it's important to be able to take a step back and think about why things are happening. I think that this chance to have an open dialogue and to speak as a panel and to speak with each other is a great first step, which is one of the reasons that I was so interested in being here today with all of you. It saddens me to think that such a horrible act of violence and hate is what actually brought us together. That's just very sad. It almost makes me want to cry. But I think that it's a great first step to have us all together in this room, as you were saying. I think everyone has said that to a degree. And I'm hoping that some of our existing committees in the college, we have a cruise committee, which is our committee for retention, engagement, and the well-being of students. Well-being is certainly very important, and I'm hoping that committees like that exist on the college can actually start to work on this and do something during the academic year to bring the topic of racism forward. I know that when I come to work every day, what I hope is that our students walk in the door and they feel welcome, they feel comfortable, and that they feel happy to be here. But I don't know every day if that's really true. I think that it is, but it would be important to actually find out, do they really feel comfortable here on this campus? Because that's our goal. We want everyone to feel comfortable and welcome and able to pursue their education. So I'm hoping that this group, all of us in the room, some of our existing groups that have been working really hard together, can come together during the academic year and move some of our celebration of diversity forward. I'm really eager to help with that. I'm sure that the panelists here would be as well. and those that weren't able to attend today. So I come from a place where I think that on a given day, students are very happy and comfortable to be here, but I think we really need to find that out. Is that really true? And if they're not comfortable, if there's anything that's happening, whether it's in the classroom or out of the classroom, that's making our students not feel comfortable or feeling discriminated against, are we addressing that? And I hope that we're able to do that. This is a great first step. I've actually had the privilege of doing quite a bit of reading about diversity, and one of the overriding themes in the literature that I've read is that we should have conversations like this, that we should have an open dialogue so that we begin to respect differences if we don't, and then it can move to something better. So this is a great opportunity to have a first discussion and then continue with in-classroom conversations and out-of-classroom conversations so that we can celebrate diversity and make sure that we respect our differences.
Thank you. So just one mental call for all the panelists, for John, for Tatiana, for Pat, for Kathy, and for Karen. And just, this is your time now, but just a couple of things to start us off. This past year, we used the themes of contemplation, which we had today in our memorial service, community, coming together as a community, love, which is part of our mission and part of our heritage and what we give back in our professions, and empowerment. And so some of what I heard today, that this is a difficult but necessary conversation, that you're going to be made to feel uncomfortable, but out of discomfort is going to come more comfort as you work together. That love did not die that day, even though it was a horrible, tragic, awful event. Love is still alive. And the fact that we can look for these occasions to come together, to make a statement that we can scale and we can show others how to address those issues that Tatiana raised about, as a white man, and I'm talking to a black woman, is she saying or thinking something about the way in which I'm talking? Or am I thinking or saying something about the way in which she's talking? Those are important conversations for us to have, not just this year and next year, but for the years to come, because that's the way in which America is going to become greater and in which diversity will rule. So this is your time, and responses to the panelists, ideas that you might have for us to make formal programs about diversity and about the issues that were brought up today. Comments, questions, ideas?
In this particular instance, I actually think that the way the church and the church members handled the situation empowered them immensely. And I feel like they took all that was negative, not all, but a lot of what was negative about the situation, and they took the perspective back, and they brought it back towards the African American person, towards the love, towards the religion, and towards their society, rather than let this one person who did these horrific acts claim them and own their church, which is what his idea was to do. You know, he did research, and the oldest church that he could find, it's sad, but it's the truth. But they did not allow him to do that. They didn't allow him to strip them of their identity, or these people of the respect and knowledge and love that they had for their community. So even in their death, this great light, I felt like, came from these people. When you looked at these people, you see their sorrow, but you see the immense love and faith that they have in each other, in God, and just in themselves. And I think that, maybe, at Laboure, like, for instance, I'm here, I'm getting extra credit if I write something too. But that got me here. They did. I had one kid in the car and I had one next to me. But it got me here to the conversation. And she sits next to me and she listens and she's got lots of strong opinions like her mom. This is the key, is that we open up the conversation in a way that doesn't always give the power to the white man, so to speak. And it gives the power to the African American person. And I do have to just couple saying black because I feel like I'm an American, you're an American, and I should distinguish you as that. Not even that much, but as that. I just think they did a really good job, and I think that gathering us all together here to discuss it is a really good thing. I think more focus on how they respond and the greatness of the African American in that situation and the power that they have. That it would be better focused on is the strength, not that's what I have to say.
Kind of playing on what my mom said. I love the way people reacted to that. They kind of came more together, kind of like during situations of tough times. People come more together, and like terrorist stuff, that's the way it's terror. If you give them the show the fear, that gives them the power, and it'll become stronger on their side. So I feel like if we they were react and join together, and we just try to get rid of this giant problem. Which, to be honest, it's going to take a hell of a lot of time. But I mean, Gisette got to start somewhere. So I mean, I don't know. My mom has trouble saying black because she's like, that doesn't really matter. But for me, if I say black, it's like saying your eyes are blue or your eyes are green. It's just part of you. And that you should have some pride with that. I'm completely almost brown colored. I'm not black, but I'm like that. And I take pride in that. You should take pride in being black. And, sure, I'm not, ridiculed or, people don't think less of me because I have brown eyes. But I don't think that it should be something, you should be afraid to say. And it shouldn't be racist. It shouldn't have that negative connotation like it does. We need to make it so that these words that we say, it shouldn't have that, I feel. Because, I don't know, it's just being black's just a characteristic, and it shouldn't really, it doesn't affect the person inside, really. We're all blood and bones and skin. Yeah.
Children live what they learn, and that's how it starts. He said he almost didn't go through with it because they were so nice to him. And the fact that he was brought up that African American, he wanted to start a race war is what he said. And one person can't do that if you don't. My son sees no color. We see no color, and I can say that because I have neighbors on both sides. Spanish, black. I live in a diverse neighborhood, and I grew up that way, where I judge you on how you treat people, how you live, how you, I'm 12-year Catholic school girl. I grew up not to see color, and I grew up in the projects. So, an inner city girl, and I grew up to respect people, and that's the whole case. Children live what they learn, and if you grow up in a neighborhood where people don't matter and property doesn't matter, and you're just out to get instead of give, you're just going to go nowhere, and it's children. It starts with the children, and until you grow up and raise a child and teach them that nothing matters. I have friends from for example, I have a lesbian friend who just got married, but when my son was little, she asked to pick a game, have my son pick a game, and me and my son would go with her and her partner. So I didn't know how to broach the subject because we just never talked about different things. So I said, a friend of mine at work is going to, take us to a game, and I'm like, the only thing is they're lesbians. He's like, so? And that's the way it should be. It's like everybody has a choice to be who they want to be. And we have no right to judge. And we should respect everybody. And I usually don't talk, but, it's like everybody looking at me, but it begins with the kids, and it begins with respect, and it begins,
Thank you. Yvonne?
Stand up because I can't see down here. I grew up in the AME church. My grandmother was the oldest member of the Columbus Ave AME church. And me and the six of us, we grew up in the AME church. And when this incident happened, when I heard it on the news, it's one thing that I did know. I knew that the families were going to be okay. And the reason I knew that those families were going to be okay, we used to sing a hymn in the church. Ain't gonna let nobody turn us around. Ain't gonna let no incident turn us around. Ain't gonna let no trouble turn us around. And I knew that those people had such a love in their heart for the love of Jesus. So because they had that love, they couldn't do anything but forgive, and their families couldn't do anything but forgive. And I know that they did not want this incident to set us back hundreds and hundreds of years. They wanted us to, they teach us in that church. They want you to look forward. They want you to look at him and see the good in him. I don't see, of course I see color. I would lie if I said I didn't see color. Of course I see color. We're all different. Of course we're all different. But that's what makes it work, because we're all different. And because we're all different, we can sit in here and we can have these dialogues and we can get ideas from one another. And we can say, this is what makes it work. Now, he went in that church on a Wednesday. Pat can tell you, because she came out of the AME church. Wednesday night is Bible study in every AME church. So you don't have to say, well, I wonder what's going on. Every church, every AME church is Bible study. Of course they were going to embrace him. Even if they had a thought that something may be wrong with this guy, they would have never turned him away. They would have never, ever turned him away. So what happened, it hurts me. I used the prayer, I used this. It hurts me. I knew the Pickney. I know some of the Pickneys. Their family came out of Columbus Ave Church. I know Luther. That was his uncle. I know that. But even with all of that, they don't want this to stop things. They don't want things to come out of this that's going to hurt or stop what we've already done. They don't want the progress to stop. We are making progress. It's very, very, very difficult. It's difficult for blacks. It's difficult for whites. It's difficult for Spanish. When I hear things like, oh, the cops did this, the cops did that, I don't give an opinion. I was a cop. And people will seek me out. What do you think about that? I don't think about it. I'm no longer a cop. I work at Laboure. That's not my problem anymore. So I don't think about it. So I just wanted to say that all this is good. I enjoy it. But those people were so resilient down there in North Carolina because they had that love of Jesus in them. And when they had that love of Jesus in them, their family saw that light. They couldn't do anything but forgive.
Did you want to say something, Tatiana?
I did. I think it's very interesting just seeing different people speak about it and the different generations. Like, definitely, as you mentioned, you don't have a problem with the term black. To say that someone's black and so on, I see it the same way. But your mom, she might see it differently because she comes from a different generation, and the term African American might be more comfortable to actually use. But it's, I think it's a good time to say that, for me and maybe even for others, that it's okay to use black. It's okay to see me as a black female. I want you to see me as a black female, and I see white women, black men, and so on. Because I want you to see me. When you look at me comes a culture, a history, a story. And I want you to be open to listen to that history, to that story, and so on. And thank you so much for even sharing about the AME Church. And it's interesting how you mentioned that, like with the whole cop situation and how you were a cop. It's interesting. My father was also a cop. My father was a cop for Boston Police Department for 13 years. And it's always interesting. Maybe people seek you out because you were a cop. It's always interesting hearing their perspective. But I also think some people feel like, to kind of skip over what's going on with the law enforcement and specifically black men is kind of tough. And I only speak this because, like I mentioned, my father's a cop. I have an uncle who's a state trooper. But, I'm a mother to a baby girl. Recently, she'll be one next week, next Sunday. And it's interesting, just probably a month ago, driving down on the highway. And we got pulled over. My boyfriend was speeding. And my daughter's in the back seat. And my boyfriend, even though he was just speeding, he has to get out the car. He has to be searched. Everything that was on him tossed on the street. And even though my daughter's not even one yet, even though my daughter, her car seat faces the back, so it doesn't even face the front, and she doesn't even see what's going on, she may not even know. I would strongly believe that there was an energy. And the tears just quickly filled my eyes, thinking, is this what she's going to have to see? Is this what she's going to grow up thinking? That is okay. Because her father, who is a black man, who may fit the description of a thug, a hoodlum, or whatever you would want to put him in, whatever category, is this what she's going to have to accept? Because who her father is that her father helps at-risk kids. He's a clinician. He goes in kids' home and he gives them therapy. He goes to school to help all children of all races, to show them the importance of education. But they didn't see that. So while they're searching him, tossing the stuff, this is all running through my mind. And at the end, he was handed a ticket, and that cop left, and we come back in the car. And there's that awkwardness. And there's that silence on what to actually do. So, thanks for sharing, but this is something that, it's definitely, I just wanted to put it out there. It's about police. And like I mentioned, like I said, I follow the police officer and I understand and I respect it. But I think, there's a side of that story that should also be mentioned. Thanks.
I'm glad you told that story, because once when I was younger, I was driving home after Christmas, and I was stressed that I was younger. Anyway, I was driving the left lane, and in Massachusetts, you're not supposed to drive the left lane. You're supposed to pass the left lane. And there was a car following me, and he kept tailgating me, and I got angry and I flipped him off. And it turned out that this was an unmarked police car. And he pulled me over, and he comes out laughing. And I thought that this is kind of funny that I flipped off a cop. And he made some jokes about it. And then he gave me a ticket and said, if you actually go and fight this, I may not even show up because it's Christmas. And then I left. Now, the contrast between these two stories, I think, is it's a really good illustration, both of how fickle works. Because if you don't have the experience that you're describing, your relationships with police and other institutions are sort of like what I'm describing, you're going to have a profoundly different understanding of the cops, their job, of the criminal justice system, and so forth. So I think that's really important. That's the sort of thing that we have to kind of confront. But the other thing is that I'm not sure that simply saying, teaching your children not to see color or Judge, is really, it's important, but I don't know that it can really kind of truly confront structural racism and the kind of long-term consequences of this, which do indeed go back to slavery. I mean, don't forget that the vast majority of North America was still either directly on slave labor or on financial investments that began using slaves as commodities to invest in commodities and so forth. And the market economy continually reproduces that inequality. So I think it's important, I think, what you're saying. But I also think it's important that we think about how this should make us question a lot of the kind of ideological assumptions we make, economically, politically, how we think about wealth and distribution and all sorts of things. And those really do require a more, I think, more analytical approach at the same time as we sort of engage in a kind of utopian project of getting people to see beyond race.
May I interject, because I'm noticing that people are starting to leave, and I know that we've been here a while. One of the things that I was hoping to get, and I think I've gotten, is a sense from you all that you'd like to see something like what started here continue in a formal way. Do you have any ideas, concrete ideas about how to do that you'd like to share? Yes?
CAI class. Temporary air conditioners. It's an awesome thing.
Okay. That's a great idea. Yeah.
I actually think that you somewhat have that going on already. And I think that in taking when cultures collide, I took it with Ketchy. And, you know, the first thing that we had to do is we had to take a piece of paper. I was in class with you, remember this. We had to take a piece of paper and we had to talk to the person next to us. And it was very noted how some people knew where somebody worked, knew how long they'd been a nurse, like knew such very superficial things. And then other people really knew. They have kids, 2 boys, 1 girl, you know, and this and that, married this many years, like knew personal information about this person because it identified them as an individual, not a nurse, not a student, but as an individual, as a part of a family, a part of a community, you know, the greater. And I think that's probably something that if it was incorporated in every class, when you got there, by the time we were done, we would probably already know that, you know, this one had 3 children and this one had, you know, whatever. Because we would get to know each other. You know, especially with the hybrid program, we see each other twice. There's no real collaboration between us, you know, which, you know, I find that disappointing. I hate not coming to class. I hate sitting home and not having conversation. So I think that's one way. You know, is you know, maybe tell a little bit about your life, what you're comfortable with, what you want to share. You know, the struggles.
It's very important because it guides respect and appreciation to the people that they know each other. So if there is any kind of conflict, you're already a step ahead because you're starting to appreciate differences. So doing that is very important.
Thank you. Yes?
I think it would be really important if somehow we could get together some type of student body. As I understand, there's no, formal student representative. So maybe forming a student body, which could organize some community events where students can kind of get together, you know, and talk and just interact with each other. I think would be a really good thing.
Thank you. That's a great idea. Yes?
I think something just as simple as like walking on lunch, but it's like a safe place where you can come and just talk. I remember I went to school at Latin Academy right in Dorchester, Roxbury. And I remember like we used to talk about race all the time. I was friends with everybody. It was just like whatever. We just talked and we got out there and we asked questions. And then I feel like when we got out into the real world, it became like such a scary thing to talk about. It was no longer just asking questions or, you know, asking opinions on certain things. It became like a really negative, I mean, it is obviously racism is negative. It became a very scary thing to talk about. And I think it's something as simple as mingling and just discussing. Like, I'll ask you a question, you ask me, or what do you feel about this? You know, just a place where you're not going to be judged, where you can argue but keep it clean, just to get it out there. Just like a room like this, I just isn't something. Because if we bottle it up and write about it on Facebook, it's true. I mean, I'm a ranger. I'll rant about everything. But it would be great if we could just be in our room and just talk. And
That's great. That's a great idea. Thank you.
But listening to you is one of the. I never really listened to someone like that. Like I heard every single syllable you said.
By the way, we've recorded this so that we'll make a YouTube link and we'll do something with it in terms of putting it on the website so others can see it, and maybe that could lead to something like you're talking about. LaShawn?
I agree with the discussion that we had listening to the panel. I feel like maybe networking with some diverse colleges, trying to figure out do they have anything that they do differently that we can take on, stuff like
Great
that.
idea.
And I understand because I come from both sides of this large fence. I have interracial parents. My mother's white, my father's black. So I understand the difficulty in trying to find a common ground to try to bring all of us together. So
It's a great idea. Thank you. Leo?
Thank you. It's so good to see so many of your students here. Just to be mindful in terms of our community and dynamics that are already happening, and how to link to that, and how we can even link more. Karen had mentioned the Cruise Committee, which is all about engaging new students and how we can make Laboure better for you going forward. We have the Catholic Identity Committee, where we look to communicate our mission way beyond these walls here in different kinds of initiatives we have and will be taking. And also the Student Nurse Association, Yale and Margaret Williams and Company, who look to do charitable kinds of events each year. So together in these standing organizations where people meet and sit around a table to think about and to actually engage real activity that touches people's lives, very broadly, not only within but without. We're just minutes away from Mattapan. We're minutes away from Roxbury. We're minutes away from Maria Cass Boulevard and Mass Avenue. If you ever want an experience, go there at 11 o'clock at night and wait at the traffic light. It's really astonishing. And so where we can have a presence beyond here, the people you're going to be working with professionally now, it's all wrapped into our mission in terms of how you're reaching out in a very compassionate kind of way. It's already linked to our college's mission of being mindful of people, and no matter what part of the world, what part of the planet, if they like mashed potatoes, noodles, or rice, don't matter. We're all paddling in the same boat. And to have that kind of consciousness, I think is a very good thing. So essentially, to be aware of, and perhaps we as a community to announce and let everybody know when these meetings are occurring. So, I'm free at 11 o'clock. Can I join you? So please, your classmates and other folks, let them know these organizations are happening, because it's not going to happen from us anyway. Thanks.
So what I've heard is the first idea was to try to embed it in the curriculum. This whole notion, get it throughout the curriculum, which is important. Try to create some place where people are comfortable talking about and sharing these ideas. Try to connect with already existing opportunities that the college has put in place. Get students to come. Would people come to formal events if we had speakers come, say, from other colleges or other places to talk about these issues? If we instituted something like a convocation where we all got together to welcome the new students to the college and maybe read, one of Reverend Pinckney's writings, would people come to that? Or is that something that you think we're not ready for? Yes.
I think it's a great idea. I have another idea as well. Everybody likes to eat, and we all love to come together. And the community I was a part of years ago, a very diverse community, had weekly teas, weekly get-togethers with something, with food and other libations. But it brought everybody together. People who weren't on campus for other reasons would come for the teas, and that was a big way that we got to know each other and form community. So I'm wondering whether people might be interested in that.
Or anything else anybody'd like to offer before we close for today? Yes?
I think it would be awesome to connect with the AME Church of Boston, with like organizations like Black Lives Matter, NAACP, or any type of like equality group, just to hear their side of the story. Just like she shared, the AME Church knew how to forgive, knew how to love, and so on. And some people don't know how to actually do that. So to hear the process, or just to hear the background on how to say this happened, this tragic situation happened, but I forgive you, I think is so I don't want to say deep, but more so deep, and I think people would connect to it even more.
Okay, it's great idea. Anybody else? So once again, thank you to all of you. Thanks to those who put the memorial service together, Leo, Tina, Anne-Marie, others. Thanks to our panelists. Enjoy the day. This is a great start.